Podcast Bites.
How do scientists who are engaged in researching these compounds, or people from the underground, and certainly you've spent time with some highly experienced facilitators, let's call them, on the underground, who have done thousands of administered sessions, how do the people you respect explain how these compounds have the duration of effect that they do? In other words, you have these people, the patients, going through, let's just call it a 4 to 8 hour experience. They have preparatory sessions, which are sober. They have integration sessions, which are sober. Maybe some type of psychotherapy. They have 2 or 3 of these sessions, and in some instances you see months or years of durability of effect as it relates to, say, addiction or compulsive behaviors, and you alluded to this, but which may appear to perhaps be variations of the same dysfunction, right? Which is partially why this default mode network being not necessarily deactivated, but kind of down-regulated is very interesting. How do they explain the duration of effect? Because clearly the half-life of these compounds...
Yeah, they're out of your brain in 6 or 8 hours. And so it's not a purely psychopharmacological effect. It really is the experience you're having. You're administering a certain kind of experience. And it's very powerful. It's kind of like a reverse trauma in a way, right? It's a big event in your life. And many of the people who undergo this treatment say that this is one of the 2 or 3 biggest experiences of their lives that they compare to the birth of a child or the death of a parent, which is astonishing that a pill could have such a profound effect. So you really have to look at the phenomenology of the experience, which when it works best is what they call a mystical type experience. I think what's central to that, though, is an experience of ego dissolution, of complete depersonalization. It is your ego, in a way, that writes and enforces those destructive narratives very often. And if you can shut it off for a period of time and realize that there's another ground on which you can stand, that you're not identical to your ego, that you can get some perspective on it, that, I think, is very positive. The ego builds walls, right? It isolates us from other people. It isolates us from nature. It's defensive by definition. And when you bring down those walls in the psyche, what happens? Well, you merge. You merge with something else. There's less of a distinction between you and the other, whether that other are other people in your life or the natural world or the universe. And so these lines of, as the doors of perception open, as Huxley said, these lines of connection, there's this incredible flow. And it sounds banal, but very often what flows through those connections is love. Powerful feelings of love and reconnection. I say this based on all the interviews I've done and the experiences I've had myself. But a lot of the problem with depression and addiction is disconnection, right? I mean, addicts get to the point where their relationship to that bottle is more important than their relationship to their children, to their spouse. It's an astonishing thing. And the drugs appear to help people reconnect. So yeah, you're only having this temporary experience, but it has this remarkable authority. And that's one of the most curious things about it. William James called it the noetic quality of a mystical experience. And that is the belief that whatever insight you've had, whatever epiphany you've had, is not a subjective opinion or idea. It's a revealed truth. It's actual knowledge. And so I talk to these smokers, or ex-smokers now, and I would say, so how did this experience allow you to stop smoking? Just this one experience. This is a lifelong habit you've had. I remember this one woman, she was an Irish woman, she was about 60, and she said, well, I had this incredible experience, and I sprouted wings, and I flew all through European history, and I witnessed all these great scenes in European history, and I died 3 times, and I saw my ashes, my smoke from my body rise on the Ganges, and I realized, God, there's so much to do and see in the world that killing yourself with cigarettes is really stupid. Now, probably she had thought that before, and people had probably told her that smoking was stupid. But she believed it in a way she had never believed it before. And it has something to do with, I think, the way psychedelics, this is at high dose, dissolve the subject-object duality. Everything's objective, or means the same thing, everything's subjective. You don't have this idea, well, that's just an idea in my head, and that's not out in the world. It's all of a piece. So it's a real reset of the mind, and which is very hard for conventional therapists and psychiatrists to grok. I mean, it's a weird idea that a single experience could have that effect. But if you think that a single trauma can put your mind on a new path, perhaps permanently, unless it's treated, you know, whether it's a sexual abuse or a bomb going off or a crime being committed, I mean, the mind has certain moments where right-angled turns happen. And perhaps it can happen in a positive way as well as a negative way.
Avocado, motherfucker.